where I play, as long as I go number one in the draft.
From the Erie Otters, Connor McDavid.
From the London Knights, Mitch Marner.
From the Western Hockey League's Brandon Wheat Kings, Nolan Patrick.
This is Tracking the Draft with Craig Button.
He checks an enormous amount of boxes. Nobody in this draft did more with less. I absolutely love him. It's not his skills that anybody's concerned about. It's that playing attitude. And quite frankly, it's really poor.
Speeding towards the future of the NHL.
From the U.S. Development Program, Jacob Truba.
From Färjestad of the Swedish Elite League, Jonas Brodin.
From the Boston U Terriers, Brady Tkachuk.
He could play in the NHL next year. He's one of those guys.
Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 28 of season 2 of Tracking the Draft with Craig Button. The director of scouting for TSN will be along shortly. And this is the show where the stars of tomorrow are discovered and discussed, and it is great to be back chatting. It's great to be back on Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network. We have some incredible things going on behind the scenes. A new show will debut this Saturday, the Ultimate Roundtable. Times and details still being worked out, but it should come your way sometime in the afternoon on Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. As is today's show, we are going to discuss 3 different prospects who will hopefully one day become NFTs on the UFFS platform. We're going to be speaking about Simon Edvinsson, a defenseman out of Sweden. Really highly rated by a lot of people, and we'll find out for good reason from Craig Button. Fyodor Svechkov also. This is an interesting one because this prospect was auctioned off for just $20 and now making a lot of noise. And Xavier Bourgault, player out of the QMJHL, Pipeline Prospects, has that NFT, and we'll speak with Craig and get his thoughts on what he thinks about those 3 players. Also, going to be asking Craig about, what Jack Eichel's trade value might be, and, what the Sabres might be looking at, whereas what other teams might be looking at. Hopefully that's a draft trade because there's always exciting things. And Cole Caufield in the playoffs with the Montreal Canadiens. We'll check in with Craig to see what he thinks about Caufield and what the Habs are doing so far as a young player in the playoffs. Craig joins us courtesy of the UFFS hotline. It is the ultimate fantasy experience. And if you want to get in the game, you can do it by just becoming a scout. Franchises are really expensive. Hockey franchises has sold for $51,000. The UFAFL auction for American League football is going to blow the doors off, especially when some of the alumni and current players that are joining forces with us are announced. It's going to be just through the roof. But you can get in as a scout for like $20. It's so easy. And then you can bid on players if you want in these scout auctions, or you can list a player for just $20. I think being a scout might be $25. But anyway, it's a very small amount, and it gets you in the game where you can make some money off of listing players, and then they get drafted, or you sell them directly to UFHL franchises. This is going to be awesome. So a time for you to get in now when it's still relatively quiet, because the thing about scouting is you can join as a hockey scout and then decide that you're pretty good eye for baseball players. You can scout in baseball when we launch that. The Ultimate Fantasy League Baseball will be coming on auctions this fall. The league play starts next year, so you can scout in any kind of sport. Check it out on the website, www.uffsports.com. Here's quickly a look at high-level scouting. My wife is the owner of this scouting agency. Craig Button is the president, and these are some of the prospects that we have. And so that's what you can do, is build your own stable of scouts, of prospects. It's awesome. And this show is, as mentioned, proudly being broadcast on UFSN, the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network, and just like UFFS, we are growing. New shows are being planned, as mentioned, the Ultimate Roundtable this Saturday, and we're talking to more passionate people about getting their shows on the network. Bookmark the YouTube page. Keep checking back. If you have a show that you think would be great, please reach out to us. UFSN at uffsports.com or follow at UFS Network on Twitter. The DMs are definitely open in that regard, and we can get you involved where you own the game. All right, let's get to Craig Button right after this.
Here he is, the director of scouting for TSN, former GM of the Calgary Flames, and a Stanley Cup champion with the Dallas Stars. Plus, he's a sharp-dressed man with a heart of gold and a passion to match it. Craig Button.
Craig, we are just over 5 weeks away from what will be another strange draft, a virtual draft in the National Hockey League. And we'll be chatting about 3 prospects who could be potential NFTs in a second. But I want to ask you about, one of the more popular situations going, topics in the NHL right now. And that's what might be happening with Jack Eichel and Buffalo, a very young player. We've seen teams in the past move on from young players too early. The Boston Bruins might come to mind with Joe Thornton. What do you see going on with this Eichel situation? It's rare that a young star player like this could be available.
Well, it is rare, and when they do become available, you're doing everything you can to understand what the cost of acquiring them are. I remember back in, I forget what year it was, must have been 2002, and Vinny Lecavalier, there was a lot of talk about Vinny Lecavalier perhaps being available. And, you phone, you find out, you want to know what the asking price is. Well, ultimately, what ended up happening in Tampa Bay is Rick Dudley was the one that was taking calls on Vinny Lecavalier, and the owner and other people in the organization decided that we're not trading Vinny Lecavalier, and they replaced Rick Dudley with Jay Feaster. So I don't think that that's a scenario that plays out in Buffalo, just to, as a sidebar. But when a quality player like Jack Eichel becomes available, it's incumbent upon a manager to phone and find out what the cost is, and to find out, what it would mean to what the ask is in terms of acquiring that player. I mean, rumors go, but this is reality. And I know with Jerome McGinley, the rumors would get out there, we're going to trade him, and it's got to be hilarious. And your phone would ring like incessantly. And then, like, you'd pick up the phone and phone back and go, I know why you're calling. Make me say yes. Start. That's how I would deal with it. Bob Clark's advice. Don't sit there and let the other manager say, ask what you're looking for. I just said, go ahead. Make me say yes. Start.
Well, and
what about this? I said, when I'm satisfied with what you're offering, you'll hear yes. So go.
There you go. Yeah. And you might be talking for a long time, depending on the player. And, this
that's exactly the point, Dean, right? I wasn't trading Jerome McGinley. Right. So don't waste my time. If you're serious, let's start the process. And it was funny how GMs would start in and go, well, what do you think of that? I said, have you heard me say yes yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I want to know if I'm on the right track. I said, keep going. If you hear me say yes, you'll know you're on the right track. Until you hear yes, you're not on the right track.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Jack Eichel. He's a star player. He's a young star player. And, the Buffalo Sabres, I think, have a bigger challenge in front of them. It's not just Jack Eichel. It's Sam Reinhart and Rasmus Ristolainen and those players that have been there for a number of years now that have given a lot to the organization. and they haven't had a chance to come close to tasting success. And players ultimately, and in the end of it, they want a chance to not only be given the opportunity to be at their very best individually, they want a chance to be part of something collectively. And I think if you look at Sam and Ristolainen, Sam Reinhart and Rasmus Ristolainen and Jack Eichel, they've given what they got. They've given lots of what they got. Now they're looking at a situation where they're going, is this a scenario in Buffalo where I can get the second part of this, which is an opportunity to compete for championships and work together as a team? That's Kevin Adams' biggest challenge. So, that means who you're going to hire as a coach. What does it mean for Jack Eichel? What does it mean for Sam Reinhart? What does it mean? It's not one action. It's multiple actions. And ultimately what Kevin has to do is he has to convince those players and every one of his players that they're moving in the right direction. And until you start showing that, it doesn't always have to be in a big way. Little small signals, small signs that it's moving forward will deliver that sign to the players. Right now, I don't know what the players can hang on. Now, for Kevin Adams, I mean, you're going to trade Jack Eichel. That's great. I heard all the talk when they traded Ryan O'Reilly about how much quantity they got. Oh, they got a lot of pieces. You know what? They didn't get quality. They didn't get any quality. They got zero quality. You're trading Ryan O'Reilly, you better get quality. When you're trading Jack Eichel, if you're going to trade him, you better get quality. That's what you better be looking at.
Yeah, and a bunch of pieces, if they're not up to that quality, it doesn't matter. They're not going to fit into your puzzle. So it's sage advice that you have to get this right if you're going to decide to trade this player. All right, let's move on.
It's not just right. Let me just be real quick here.
Yeah.
It's not just about right for what you're getting for the player. Like, it's got to be right for the organization and what you're trying to do going forward. And, if you're going to sit here and talk about prospects and you're going to talk about draft picks and everything, well, guess what? The group that's left after and behind Jack Eichel, they're going to be the next group that's going to be looking for signs that they have a chance to compete successfully as a team. They're going to be the next group. And if you're not showing that group, guess what? You're just seeding more doubt into your entire organization.
Yeah, and then that's just a vicious circle. All right, let's talk about Simon Edvinsson. One of, I guess you might call the big four that people are talking about for the 2021 draft on the blue line. With Frölunda Hockey Club, spent most of the time in the J20 National League, and Spitfire Scouting has this defenseman and a future NFT at $110 in the auction for future auctions. And then he will now be, pending the NHL draft, selected by a UFHL team. So exciting stuff for an NHL team and a UFHL team. And I guess, Craig, what sets him apart? There's that group that people refer to, as I referred to, the kind of that big four of you got Owen Power, Brant Clark, Simon Edvinsson, Luke Hughes, and certainly there's some other quality defensemen. But what is it that Simon maybe does that sets him apart from other defensemen?
He's already an elite NHL skater, and he's only going to become that much better with maturity and strength. But when I say right now, he's already an elite NHL skater. Forward, backwards, pivoting, the ability to pick up the pace of the game and beat pressure in his own zone. He's outstanding in that regard. I mean, when you start looking. I think he's the best skater in the draft. I don't know how else I can put it. But when you can, skate like that and you can move laterally and you can move forward and you can move backwards, you can close space on opponents and you can close it quickly. And not only do you use that defensively, well, now you start using it as a weapon to beat pressure in your own zone, get the puck moving out of your own zone. He's so good in that. In the offensive zone, I don't think he's going to be a top-end offensive player. I don't think he's got those qualities. But because he can hold the line because of the confidence in the skating, and because he can jump into the attack and keep the play alive in the offensive zone, that's going to allow whoever has him on their team, that team, to be able to keep the offensive thrust, to keep the play going in the offensive zone. It's not going to show up in points or big booming shot, but it's going to show up in really good play. And I think as he learns, I think young defensemen, especially like Simon, there's this, I got to put up points. No, you don't. You don't have to put up points. Ryan McDonough doesn't put up points, but he's a real effective player. And Simon, I think, once he gets settled in and understands, I just got to get the puck here, I got to get the puck there, I think he'll excel. And, again, I'm not looking at a player that I think is going to win Norris trophies, but I think he's a player that you want on your team. He's a competitor. He understands how to make plays real quick and real fast. And if you can't do things quickly and correctly with your mind, you're not going to be able to play very well. He reminds me, the comparable type of player I have is Seth Jones. And if you look at Seth Jones, not a big offensive player, and Seth might be a little bit better offensively, but he's not an elite offensive player. I think that Simon might have a game much like Seth Jones. Play big minutes, play against the other team's best players, penalty kill, get time on the power play, understand how to move the puck to and fro. I think that Simon possesses those qualities to be a real good defenseman in the National Hockey League, a very, very good defenseman in the National Hockey League.
The name that just keeps coming up through this whole conversation is Jay Bouwmeester. I mean, terrific skater. And Jay had some pretty good early offensive success and then kind of settled into that, and maybe Jay had a more offensive touch. But the skating, the ability that, while you might not contribute a lot of points, you might contribute to the setup of that offense, but being able to skate the puck a little bit more than some other guys. And, I think that, those guys are so valuable on a hockey team, and then they also fill out different categories in fantasy. But is this a guy that you think, while he might not be the offensive side, can still be on a number one pairing and play more of the the defensive role and maybe not the offensive role?
Yeah, I do, and I think that comparison to Jay Bouwmeester is really, really appropriate. And even despite the fact that Jay had a couple of seasons early on in his career where he was good offensively, he really settled into just being a really good, effective, what I would call two-way defenseman. That's what I think Simon is. I think he's a really good two-way defenseman. And, I think once Jay settled into being exactly what he was, you're talking about Jay was a very good player on very good teams. And so I think that it's also incumbent upon the team to make sure that they get a player, recognize what a player is, and don't get disappointed in a player because he doesn't produce offense. If you think he's going to produce offense and he doesn't, and the book on him was that he wasn't going to produce, you can't be disappointed in that player. Understand, and that's where projections come out and identifying what a player's strengths are. Because you say, we're player, he's going to score 15 goals, he's going to get 60 points, and that's what you're projecting him. And then if he doesn't become that, you're disappointed. Don't be disappointed. Just understand what it is, because the disappointment might be better directed at yourself for making the wrong assessment and projection about what a player could be offensively.
Yeah, and what happens, obviously, in a NHL draft could be different than in a fantasy draft when you're looking at specific categories. So it is so important to have those correct expectations, because with incorrect expectations, Craig, you're just, you're shooting wildly. You have no aim really in that sort of thing. So it's so important to go into not only understanding what the player is, but what you think he will be, and being realistic about it is such a huge thing, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Let's talk about this next forward, Fyodor Svechkov from Lada Tagliani in the VHL. And wow, this could be a massive haul. CanWest Scouting This player was originally won in the scouting for just $20 by Ruby ISS, and CanWest has acquired. And I wonder, it sounds like there's a lot of talk about this player. Maybe, I don't know if the quote-unquote riser, but where has he improved the most since you have started watching Svechkov?
Yeah, well, you know what I would say? I think that he is, gained confidence in his game. The productivity in his game has increased, and it's just it's a real strong circle. You gain confidence, your productivity increases, you try more things, the physical maturity has taken place. And so he as a younger player, he always was a good skater, always was smart, always had the ability to make plays. But he's just taken that and pushed that up to what I would consider pretty close to an elite level, if not an elite level. I'll be straightforward with you. I love him. I think he is such a superb player. I think he's cut from the mold of Pavel Datsyuk. That's what I see when I watch him. I'm not going to say the same type of magnificent puck skills. I'm talking about that two-way force. I'm talking about a player that not only individually contributes to the game in every significant and critical area of the game, but also makes everybody around him better and by extension the team better. That's what I see in Svechkov, and that's why I use Pavel Datsyuk as a comparable, because that's what Pavel Datsyuk did, and he does it quietly. Pavel Datsyuk didn't do it with a lot of flair and a lot of flash and dash. He had some flash and dash in his game, but he did it with a real competitive initiative, and that's what I see with Svechkov.
Yeah, like a true professional that just never shirked any duties, and that's what I remember. We all remember in our beer leagues the day after Pavel Datsyuk tried to do something or did something, and then everybody tried to do it in the beer leagues, the Datsyuk moves and things like that. But the subtleties in their game where they were just so smart. What did you see in him from at the World 18 at the U18s? Was he one of those guys that you just described as kind of like a, I don't know if not a control, but I'm trying to think of the right word, but just when the game was in trouble, this is a guy that they kind of all look to, and he could really bring the team together.
No question, he was a dominant player at the U18, dominant. He wasn't just a good player. He wasn't just he was a dominant player. And, the way that, he played in every critical situation for his team. And again, he helped everybody around him be better. To me, it's not just what an individual player does. It's the extension of his play that helps other players contribute in a real significant way into their strengths. And, when I use the word dominant, that's how he was. He was dominant, like physically, skill-wise, offensively, defensively, face-offs. I can't think of an area where he wasn't top-notch. Not one area.
Yeah, well, that's so exciting for everybody involved, and then you throw in just you talked about all around game, just the skill level, the excitement with the hands and the creativity. What excites you about that part?
Well, I think that's he can make plays in small areas. He can play in what I call a small area game, like with his physical skills. I'm talking about the hand skills and the agility and quickness. He can also do it with his body, and he also can do it with his mind. When you watch a player that can engage competitively in a certain area, and yet he knows exactly what the next play is, and he knows exactly where the puck needs to go, where his line mate can take advantage of their skills. I mean, that's a skill in and of itself. I call it progression of thought. And, hockey is a fluid sport. It's not like come up to the line of scrimmage, size it up. And progression of thought is that, you're in one area of the game and you're trying to make a play, well, you got to be able to move. You got to progress to the next area, and you got to be able to do it really quickly. And that's with the puck, without the puck. That's offensively, that's defensively. It's understanding that, okay, I'm trying to win this puck, but when I win this puck in the battle, what's my next play? Svechkov excels in that regard.
All right.
Somebody's going to get a really good player in an area of the draft where you're going to look back in years, and in my view, people are going to say, how did they get him there? I really believe that.
I love the 2 steps ahead type of player, the Cole Perfetti that we talked about from last year's draft, that are always thinking where they need to be after they make this move. It's kind of like a chess attitude towards it. All right, Craig joins us on the UFFS hotline. Scouting is a huge part of the platform. All free agents, all prospects, they go through the scouts, so you can start putting your scouting talent to good use. Become an independent scout, form a partnership with an existing franchise, and strut your stuff. Put your resume out there. Get more information at www.uffsports.com. We'll be auctioning off the 2024 draft prospects, the top 64 as of right now, and then the rest become open market for $20. So check it out at www.uffsports.com. All right, let's get into our final prospect that we're chatting about, Xavier Bourgault of Shawinigan in the QMJHL. Pipeline Prospects picked this player up for $65 in the initial auction. How would you describe him? Is he a centerman? What kind of forward would you describe Xavier as, Craig?
As I'm watching the National Hockey League playoffs, and you watch different players, and you try to use a comparable type. And Jean-Gabriel Pageau is coming a little bit to mind, because Xavier has those offensive abilities, but he's got a hunger. He's got a hunger that's a quiet hunger. He's not going to overwhelm you with power. He's not going to overwhelm you with this physical prowess, right, where he's going to gain advantages. But his mind is always working. And he's always in getting himself or trying to put himself in positions where he can take advantage of you. And you're not pushing him out of the game. You're not pushing Xavier Bourgault out of the game. And that's Jean-Gabriel Pageau to me. Now, that's where I find myself right now, watching or trying to come up with a comparable type with Bourgault. It's Jean-Gabriel Pageau. And those players, you look at Jean-Gabriel Pageau and you ask yourself, oh, okay, he plays on a team, and, Matt Barzal, look at how exciting and flashy he is. Pageau has more points than him in the playoffs. Don't ever underestimate the Jean-Gabriel Pageaus to winning. And I would say the same thing about Xavier Bourgault. I think you can go and assess, and you're probably going to hear things like, he doesn't have elite this, and he doesn't have elite that, and he lacks foot speed here, or he lacks that in size. You know what I say? Garbage. Watch the guy play. Watch the game. Watch how he invests in the game. Watch how he makes plays, important plays in the game, and when it matters. That's Jean-Gabriel Pageau, and I think Xavier Bourgault is a real good player. He played with Maverick Bourque, who was a first-round draft pick to the Dallas Stars last year. And Maverick's another player. They just play. Whatever's happening in the game, they're in the middle of it. They understand how to take advantage of their own skills and to make sure that they don't get overwhelmed. And so, you're Bourgault and you watch a Maverick Bourque, that's a pretty good example of a player that knows how to play in a lot of different areas. And again, I go back to Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Jean-Gabriel Pageau is never going to be like a poster boy for skill and flash and dash. But you want to get into the heart of the matter and the competition? Tell you what, you want Pageau.
It's interesting when I hear that we've talked about these types of players before, that when you look at them on the surface, you think, I don't think that guy's a first-line player, but they complement other first-line players. And we've talked about these guys before that, maybe on their own you wouldn't think of them as a first-line player, but they fit in so well. They do things and they make those other players, they help those other players become a better player. And, not every first-line player is equal. There are obviously some superstars that are out there, but there's also some guys that might just fit in on that first line and do a lot of things really well, kind of a glue guy. When you look at areas of improvement, do you see any glaring areas, or are they small things that he can continually work on and become that first line complementary players?
Nothing glaring at all. To me, it's what I call developmental weaknesses, and and weakness might not be the right way to do it. It's just developmental elements. You gotta work at playing the game faster and quicker, and that comes with development, and that's where the focus is. His hockey sense is really good. I don't think you can improve hockey sense. Skating, there is absolutely zero issues with his skating. Is he Connor McDavid? No, but you work at it, and again, the pace, the hands are good. Does he have the magic hands of elite offensive players? No, but projecting a player for what he is and what he can bring to the team is really important, and I think that's the key. And I've seen more flash and dash players in my time, Dean, that wowed you, so to speak, wowed you. But you know what? They weren't very functional players, and they never were able to move ahead and have success at higher levels. They just weren't. And it's not going to be any different in this year's draft. It's not going to be any different than next year's draft or the draft after that. There's those players that are always going to be in that area of the evaluation, and it just can't change. That's how it'll be.
All right, well, let's go back to the 2019 draft for a second, where a guy went mid-first round, and probably a lot of people weren't sure about his size and if he would be able to compete. And the Montreal Canadiens took Cole Caufield, 15th overall, and here he is making his debut in the playoffs. It doesn't happen very often. What have you thought about Cole Caufield in the playoffs, and probably another guy that a lot of people second-guessed at one point?
I was sure about his size. He was 5'7" and a quarter. There was nothing to not be sure of. His size was right there for everybody to see. Like you're unsure. And wait a sec. The guy was an elite. He was the best goal scorer in that draft. The best goal scorer, one of the best goal scorers I've seen come along in a long time. So I did not know next to goal scoring, Dean, there's a height requirement. I did not know next to goal scoring that there's a weight requirement. Because to score goals requires different skills and different elements. And Cole Caufield didn't just possess them. He possessed them he had star quality in them. Mike Bossy, ironically, went 15th overall in the 1977 draft. All he did was score. And people said, all he does is score. Oh, and he's not tough and he's not this. Well, wait a second. Are you asking Mike Bossy to go and fight fights? Are you asking Cole Caufield to go and grind it out in the corners? No, you drafted him for his size. And if you want, again, till the day I stop doing this, I'm going to be able to say it. You know what? Keep underestimating players based on size, the smaller players, and keep overestimating those bigger players based on their size. Because it's never going to fail. And we're going to go back in time and we're going to be like, they underestimate. Because, quite frankly, Dean, people don't learn. People don't learn.
It's clear that size is not an issue, because there's a lot of guys that don't have size that are in the Hall of Fame that have great careers. So it's clear that, and you know what? There's a lot of big guys that are giant guys that never made it either, Craig. So maybe it's more about what's inside than, what the number is and things like that. And for a guy to come in and make his debut in arguably the hardest part of the season, the playoffs, where it's the most intense, that's so impressive. It shows his, his ability to adapt and his competitive level and all those things.
I've watched Cole for a long time. All he does is keep scoring. That's all I know. Just keep scoring. Everybody's and it's not like people don't know about Cole Caufield. It's not like they're not trying to stop him. They keep trying to stop him, and he keeps scoring. It's all I know. You know this, Dean, I've said this about, there's 3 necessary requirements to be a really good goal scorer. Okay. Number 1, you have to be able to get open at the right times. You have to be able to get open at the right times to receive the puck. That's number 1. Number 2, you have to be able to take what I call tough pucks. You have to be able to take tough pucks. Every puck's not going to be flat sitting on your stick and perfectly. You got to be able to take those tough pucks and maneuver them. Then you have to do what I would call A and B. Then you have to get that shot off really quick. And opponents are trying to get their stick on the puck. They're trying to get into the area to potentially block it. And once you do all, then you got to beat the goaltender. You got to beat them with deception, or you got to beat them with a release or with a fake or whatnot. That's what's required to be a really good goal scorer. And you know what? Nowhere in there does it say you have to be 6'3". Nowhere does it say you have to be a minimum of a certain height. All I know is Cole Caufield possesses every one of those skills. And there are very few players that possess what he possesses. Brilliant player, brilliant competitor. He will continue to score at the NHL level. And in time, people will be, how did they get him at 15? How did they get him at 15? Okay, tell you what, again, overlook players based on their size.
Yeah.
Way to go.
You know, it's not like it's the zipper at the fair where you must be this tall to score goals. And I'll say this, I would rather watch Cole Caufield than get on the zipper right now because he's much more entertaining and I'm too old for those fair rides. But you don't have to be this tall to score goals. So great stuff as usual, Craig. We're creeping towards the draft. It's going to get really exciting as everybody's lists and rankings and debates come out. And that's the fun part for fans is to be able to participate and scouts of the UFHL in those debates. Thanks so much, Craig. We'll chat next week.
We will. Thanks, Dean.
This is a serious message.
Craig Button joins us on the Ultimate Franchise Fantasy Sports Hotline. Become a scout and make money while providing prospects to the Ultimate Franchise Hockey League.
What you talking about, mister?
Pay that man his money.
I'm your huckleberry.
Check out the details at www.uffsports.com.
It's serious.
I like it a lot.
I said we got a winner.
UFFS. You own the game.
All right, in the next little while, following the draft, Craig and I will do Craig's Council, where you get a chance to ask questions about his scouting career or specific scouting questions, whether that's about a specific player or a position or kind of anything like that, any kind of maybe scouting tip you would like. Craig is always open to answering those questions, that you might have and helping other people get into the scouting business and sort of paying it forward. If you do have those questions, email me trackingthedraft@gmail.com and we will add it to the list of the questions that we have in from the past couple of shows that we've done that we didn't get to everything. And we will do that probably 2 weeks after the NHL draft, and that'll be the final show of this season for Tracking the Draft with Craig Button. It's going to wrap things up. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe to UFSN. Just click subscribe, hit that little bell. You'll get a notification every time we have a show, and we have a lot coming, and we've got a lot of cool, great production things planned with some of our awesome partners, Athlete Only Sports. It's just going to be amazing. The production level is about to go way up, and we're going to be bringing on some awesome people. You do not want to miss a minute of that. So also let us know what you think of the show. Always looking for constructive criticism. And as mentioned, if you'd like to join the program in any way as an advertiser, or if you have a question for Craig, trackingthedraft@gmail.com. This has been Tracking the Draft with Craig Button. For the Director of Scouting for TSN, I'm Dean Millard. This is where the stars of tomorrow are discovered and discussed. Talk very soon.